Are you ready for the doctor? Because the doctor is in, and he's most certainly ready for you.
Every time I look around I see something. Every time I look around I know something. Every time I look around I see something. Every time I look around I know something. I know that you don't know. I see that you don't see. We all understand there is still nothing. I know that you don't know. You know that I can't see. I understand it now. You do not want to be free. Not anymore.
I am Dr. Phineas P. Livingston. Welcome to my extraordinary adventures. Before we get started with the show today, I'd like to tell you all just a little bit about myself. It is, as you no doubt have already read in your newspapers, or seen on your television screen, or possibly even on your computer screens, which is amazing. Did you know that people have in their own homes computers that simply sit upon the top of their desks? I've got one right here. I was surrounded by computers now. Well, anyway, I'll go into that later. The tale itself, though, was one of romance, suspense, and a story that would challenge even the hardiest of souls to the breaking point were it to happen to them instead of me. Dr. Livingston, your host, and I hope soon to be mentor and friend, am no ordinary man, however. Let me begin it. Well, not the beginning, since that would take far too long, and we've only been allotted a short time to convey the wonders and secrets of today's topic, and that is, unfortunately, not actually about me. I know. You all want to know more about me. I'm the host and Dr. Livingston. But let me start in... I think I have the place. Here we go. It was the summer of 1972. I was a young lad at the tender age of only 46 back then. Possibly 47. I don't want to tell tales, but I think my sainted mother might have forgotten my 11th birthday as a boy. That meant I was 10 for 2 years. The memory is really hazy, though. All I can remember is a very pale, tall man with dark hair and fangs. Well, anyway, let's not dwell on such things. So there I was, at the end of the decade of love, having drawn that one out just a little more than most had at the time. I rather had a penchant for co-eds. It just made sense. They're so young and pretty, and, well, if you've ever seen a co-ed, you'd like them too. Also, I have a strong inclination to follow into the psychonaut footsteps of the brave and brilliant Dr. Timothy Leary. Now, if you have not read the story of Dr. Timothy Leary, I recommend you go and do so just as soon as my program is over. It was due to that, my advanced knowledge and exploration of the mind, along with a large amount of a rather special grain alcohol that led me to possibly over-imbibe in a particular drug, only for the most scientific of reasons, mind. Now, this drug was called lysergic acid dimethylide. You may know it as LSD. And because of that grain alcohol, which I had quite a bit of, I rather took... Well, I had intended to take 6 tabs of LSD, which is a rather large amount. They were on small pieces of paper, referred to as blotters. Instead, I believe I took 6 blotter sheets, or roughly 600 times the rather large amount I had actually intended for scientific purposes to take. That caused me to travel through time. Now, I don't want you to get the wrong idea here, because that's what I had when I first woke up here at the Alexia Institute for Remarkable Individuals, which I thought was probably a psychiatric facility at the time, but it isn't. I had thought that I had blacked out for a little over 40 years, and was only now coming back to awareness. But they showed me a mirror, and I look exactly the same, and they swear that I simply traveled from 1968, well, actually 1972, but there was a bit of haziness involved. I was in the back of a 1968 Volkswagen bus at the time, and I think that's what I'm linking to there, with a rather hirsute young lass called Rebecca, who was the one who had given me that Grano call. And then I found myself waking up here at the Institute. It was almost exactly 40 years later. If it weren't for the mirrors, I would have thought that something else very, very drastically wrong had happened. Instead, it was only drastically wrong time travel that happened. And that leads us here to this very moment where, thanks to the very good people here, my fellow doctors and others, I have a job doing this radio show for you. I have no other real skills that translate to this world, but I can talk about the strange, the unknown, and history as long as it happened before 1972, except for those hazy years between 1968 and 1972, where I might be a little weak on things, but we all get older. I'm blaming that. And the drugs. There were really good drugs back then. Anyway, so I have the privilege of sharing these tales with you. Now, I could go on for hours or perhaps days just about the other people here at the Alexia Institute. Remarkable individuals. It isn't just part of the name. There are truly amazing people around here, some standing just outside my booth, looking at me at this very moment because I just mentioned them. Hello, everybody. We have Mortimer, who is running our soundboard and is also one of America's top secret super soldiers. I have that right, Mortimer. He is nodding his head, yes. He is one of America's super soldiers. We also have Jan, who is our production assistant and is running the computer side of things. Jan, how you doing? She is very good looking. I think she might actually be here because she is so good looking. I haven't really discussed things with her. She may also be a super scientist or something like that. But I could totally buy that she is here because of her looks. And now she is making a hand gesture at me. That is not a polite one. We had that back in the 70s, you know. Thank you, Jan. We also have Sally Hemings, who holds within her the minds and consciousness of several world leaders and great thinkers. It's at, 10 now? 15 different individuals all within her. We also have an astrophysicist, Brian, who has actually communicated with aliens using only his mind. Now, I know you're all thinking, oh, telepathy with aliens. Well, that's pretty common. Everybody has telepathy with aliens. My grandmother talks to aliens with her mind. That is not what he did. At the Ryan Institute, back in the 60s, I was one of the early proponents and investigators of telepathic communication, often with aliens. He did something completely different, and very, very demonstrable. All I can say right now is he definitely really was talking to aliens and not just making shit up. Oh, excuse my language there. Also, we have Mindy, who is Mortimer's daughter, and she is quite a darling. She was helping me get caught up on things that have happened, well, at least in the last 10 years or so. She showed me how to look things up online and how to use Google, which apparently is the world's biggest corporation and owns everything. Mindy is, as well as being very, very sweet and helpful, possessed by a demon. The demon's name is Sovereign Hale, and that's like Sovereign, like Halloween, Samhain, Samhain, Sovereign is how he pronounces it. I believe it's probably the correct way of saying it. He is a demon after all. And Hale as in Heil, like Heil Hitler, which seems rather creepy to me. But then, again, he is a demon. And a bit rude. As demons go, I mean, you have to get used to them saying things about your mother and what she's doing in hell. But this guy gets personal with it. Well, anyway, that is where we are right now. And I know you're probably clamoring into your radios and possibly computers right now, calling out, no, doctor, we need more of your story. We've heard about these other people, but what about you? That should be what you talk about today, since that is the most exciting and incredible thing ever. We all want to know more about Dr. Livingston. Seriously. Everybody out there looking at me through the glass is shaking their head no, and Jan is holding up a sign that says, "That is not what people want. Get on with the show." Of course they come to listen to stories about me. I'm Dr. Livingston. I'm famous. Kids today. Anyway, I will get on with the show, and we have an incredible gentleman with us. He has come to us via telephonic communications to relate his story just to you. Today our special guest is Richard Smerl DDS, and he is in the most unique position of being Bigfoot's lover. Mr. Smerl, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show today, Dr. Livingston. It is truly an honor. I've heard about your work in the world of the strange and bizarre for some time, naturally, and I can't really believe that I'm getting to speak to you. You can't do anything in the world of cryptids without hearing the work of Dr. Livingston recited, often quite loudly. For some reason, people who enjoy your work seem to yell a lot. I don't really know why that is, but it's pretty consistent.
That is simply wonderful. Not the yelling part, but that people haven't forgotten me. It is so good to know that a spot of time travel isn't enough to erase the legend. If you know what I mean, huh? Now, Mr. Smerl, when did you first meet Bigfoot, and how did you connect with him enough to become his lover?
Sorry?
Oh, do we have a poor connection? Jan, Mortimer, could you two check on this? I can hear you just fine, Mr. Smerl. Perhaps if I speak up, it could be my microphone here. Let me see. When exactly did you meet Bigfoot, and how did you connect with him enough to make a solid emotional and physical connection, becoming his lover? I have to say, by the way, I applaud your bravery in coming forward with this. I know that if it was, say, me having a relationship with a cryptid, I personally would feel a little awkward admitting that it was also a homosexual one. It's one thing to be getting it on with a female of the species, but with a male. Well, I'm a man of a different time. We were far more provincial back in my day. You must be very brave, however, coming here and speaking with us like this, and I applaud you for it, sir. I applaud you.
I'm not Bigfoot's lover. I'm a Bigfoot lover. I'm really not certain where you got the idea that Bigfoot and I are, well, involved. Have you been speaking to my wife? As far as I know, no one is now or ever has been involved that way with a Sasquatch.
Oh, I see. Well, that's unfortunate then. I rather planned out most of my questions for a very different topic. I'm really not certain then what I'm going to do for a show.
I have a few notes prepared, if that will help. It's just some basic information about the subject matter, some thoughts that I've written down, my observations from over the years, a few small things like that.
Excellent. That would actually be most helpful. Why don't you start in on that, and I'll try to ask my normal, intelligent, insightful, and stunning questions.
Oh, sounds good. Let's see. Did you know that Bigfoot is believed by some researchers to be the remnant population of a species known as Gigantopithecus, or literally giants? And instead of living in caves as was once thought, they might exist outdoors year-round, making nests in gullies and ravines for warmth. They'll just stack up a layer of sticks, twigs, some bark, leaves, other detritus, and just climb right in to get away from the cold. They may even bury themselves in dirt for insulation. Doing this, it's believed they can actually exist in places where the temperature regularly gets down to 40 below zero Fahrenheit.
That's pretty chilly if you're not wearing pants. That lack of a steady home and their remote and very nomadic lifestyles make them very hard to find. As you might imagine, that could possibly explain why no one has come up with definitive proof of their existence yet. That makes perfect sense. Bigfoot, or Gigantopithecus, that would be Gigantopithecus americanus if you want to use the current Latin designation. Really? Fascinating. So Bigfoot is a homeless wanderer. One that often forgoes the wearing of clothing, and I would imagine is running from something. Possibly he is on the lam from the law, or just possibly some sort of Bigfoot law enforcement, if they have such a thing. At the very least, I bet he doesn't pay taxes regularly, does he? I don't know if those labels really work. I mean, if we're going to speak about a different kind of person, a different species than our own, they're very human, but they're not like us exactly. I meant no offense, sir. Please forgive me if it sounded that way. I know that you and Bigfoot have a very close and personal connection. At least I think I heard that somewhere. I can't quite remember where, which I am blaming on all that LSD. I have been having some rather interesting experiences lately, and I may not be totally up to speed with reality at the moment. So, if I gave offense, please do not take it that way. Oh, I'm not offended. I mean, I'm just trying to keep things as clear as possible. What we do in our society doesn't really have to match up with his for it to be just as valid, right? Naturally. But you do proclaim Bigfoot to be a person, however, which sounds rather personal. So, have you met Bigfoot? Well, I can't say that we've met in the normal fashion. I mean, we don't exactly go to the same conventions that I know of or anything like that, but I have seen him on at least 2 separate occasions. You have seen Bigfoot? Charming. I can work with that. I think I even have some questions that will fit with only a bit of modification. It's brilliant, really, because, frankly, Mr. Smerl, I was running out of things to say otherwise. I did not come here prepared to ask normal questions about Sasquatch. Perhaps you could relate those tales to us? That would give us an overview of your experiences and give me time to make up something. Sure. The first happened when I was about 19, so that was about 20 years ago now. I was in the backyard of my grandfather's cabin in Washington State. Now, this borders on the Pinchot National Forest. I need to describe this to everyone out there so that you get what I'm talking about. The forest there is larger than some entire states, and it's all nearly impossible. There is thick old-growth forest, 100 feet off of the trails that they drive through. You don't walk. You're like crawling through brush and things like that. And human beings just don't really go in there much. So it's believed that a lot of Bigfoot actually can survive and even thrive in there, being that they're larger and hardier than we are and can move easily through obstacles that we really couldn't. Now, I was just looking around, daydreaming a bit, and it was, I guess it was nearly dusk. When, not 50 feet away from me, I saw it, just standing on the edge of the woods, looking at me. Bigfoot. And he was impressive. It's hard to explain to people how much so. He stood, at least 8, maybe 9 feet tall, and had to weigh in at nearly 600, maybe 700 pounds, and it was all pure, rippling muscle. The fur was a lustrous brown, the highlights of nearly gold shot throughout it. I remember looking deep into his chocolate brown eyes and thinking, I've just got to learn more about this creature. Unfortunately, I froze, and didn't say anything or even wave. And as things like that tend to go, after a few minutes, he just turned and walked off back into the woods. It was one of those perfect moments that you figure you'll never have two of. I see. So was that when you first discovered your love of Bigfoot? Yeah. I really hadn't thought about it much before. I mean, I'd heard some stories about Bigfoot, but I always figured they were just that, stories. You know, drunk hunters go out into the woods, claim they see something, mistake a bear for a person walking around. But I became obsessed after that. I spent all of my time reading, researching, thinking about the subject. I even went back and just sat in that yard, waiting to see if he'd come and visit. But he never did. Oh, like a stalker then? Excuse me? Oh, now this is where I'm afraid that spot of time travel I had is going to get me into trouble. That's a term from an older time. Let me see if I can define this for you. We used to have a thing called hunting. I know what hunting is. Excellent, excellent. And some hunters were called stalkers. These were individuals who would study up on the habits and patterns that animals would show so they could better track them down in their own environment, even outwit them in their own natural territory. Oh, well, right, yeah, well, after a fashion. I am not one of those people that want to kill a Bigfoot, mind. That's just ridiculous. It's a huge controversy in the Bigfoot community. There are some ignorant and rather shallow people, not that I want to call names, that think that killing one of these majestic beings is just fine, as long as we claim that it's in the name of science, because that would make it fine, right? Really, it would just be murder, and everybody knows that. They're far too human and far too related to us for it not to be. Ah, and on that exciting note, let's take a few moments to listen to some messages from our sponsors. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. And I have to say, I'm most excited by this. This is my very first commercial break. So remember, listen to our sponsors, heed their messages and warnings, and buy a lot of things from them. Thank you.
Hey, this is Bruno from your local Italian mafia. As some of you know, we've recently been bought out by Google, and there are some changes coming for the organization. I'm here to assure you all that the high-quality standards and services that you're used to receiving from your mafia will continue uninterrupted. One small change is coming, however, and that is that your weekly protection money will now be paid on Tuesdays instead of Thursdays. To make this adjustment easier, the new boss, Google, wants me to let you all know that our representatives won't even be by this week at all, so that you can save that cash for next Tuesday, avoiding any complications or unpleasantness, because Google cares. Thank you for your support during this time of transition. Both Google and your local mafia thank yous in advance.
Ba-da-bing.
Hi, boys and girls. It's me, Mr. Happy, and I want to tell you about all the wonderful and fun times you can have at Happy Time Ice Cream. We have something for everyone. Balloon animals, great food, and games for the kids. Our Xanax room for Mom, and Dad is sure to love the Relaxo Massage Lounge. Older brother will love it too. So come on down to Happy Time Ice Cream and bring the whole family. Ice cream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream at Happy Time. Yay! Hello, this is Jan Meyer, production assistant on Dr. Livingston's Extraordinary Adventures. I'm here today to recommend an author to you. He's not just any author either. He's our author, P.S. Power. Aside from being a most interesting person, and he really is, he also has a lot of books for people to read. Good ones, too. The Young Ancients, Keely Thompson Demon Girl, the Dead End series, and a lot more. As to why you should get these books, other than that they really are pretty good, well, that's the interesting part. P.S. Power is using a part of his book sales each month
to pay for this program. Yes, that's right. The hundreds of thousands of dollars that might one day be my salary all come from those book sales. So, buy lots today, please. Right now I get paid in bags of corn chips, delivered fortnightly, or so I've been told. I'm really not certain what a fortnight is, but I'm getting kind of hungry and would much rather have a nice check each month. So PS Power, great books. Find him on Amazon.com or on PSPowerBooks.com. Get yours today.
And we're back! Are you still there, Mr. Smerl?
Yes, I'm still here. We were talking about the first time I saw Bigfoot.
Ah, very good of you to remind me, sir, just in case the old memory is going. I did, however, find another question in my notes during the break. Now, I had to change the wording on this. I hope I've done enough here quickly while I was going through things to be able to ask this in a way that won't be rude or offensive. You mentioned that you are very close to Bigfoot and spend a lot of time with. You mentioned that you were within 50 feet of Bigfoot, and some have said that the creature has a rather sharp odor, which is probably from being homeless and not showering regularly, if what you said earlier is correct about that whole nomadic lifestyle thing and burying themselves in dirt and dead stuff. Did you notice anything like that on your first meeting? A strong odor or scent, since you are so close to Bigfoot, or were that one time 50 feet away from Bigfoot?
I've heard that. But I found the one I meant to be. I guess it would best be described as kind of a smoky musk. It was a manly scent without being sharp or acrid at all. It's really unforgettable.
Oh, so, do you find that... Oh, what's this? Something came up in front of me on my screen. It appears we have a question, and it comes from over the internet, which I am almost certain is built on magic. Okay, Dan in San Francisco asks, Dr. Livingston, I love your show and would never miss a single episode. Why, thank you, Dan. This is the first episode? So far, so good. I do like your enthusiasm, however. Could you ask your guest if Bigfoot has a particularly large schlong or not? I was just wondering, since he has those very huge feet. Well, that's a cheeky thing to say on a radio broadcast show, Dan. That kind of intimate detail would best be left to the bedroom, don't you think? I don't know that Mr. Smerl would want to be sharing his partner's large and no doubt manly measurements. I mean, if he knew such things, which apparently he doesn't. Still, Mr. Smerl, you were rather close to the creature for some time. Or 50 feet away for about 5 minutes. Did you notice anything like that? Does Bigfoot have a large male member?
What? No, really I didn't. I was a little too busy at that moment, having just seen a Sasquatch, to worry about things like that. Really, what kind of question is that? It's kind of rude. I'm just putting that out there, Dan. Yeah, kind of a rude question.
Well, in Dan's defense, people do always speak about Bigfoot's huge feet. Really, it's right there in the name, Bigfoot. So it's a natural enough assumption to make. After all, you know the old saying, the size of a man's feet is directly related to the size of his nose. Anyway, why don't you distract us from that disturbing imagery now by going over the second time you saw him?
Fine, I could do that. You people... Well, anyway, it was about 6 years ago now, and I was driving on a long, quiet stretch of road near the Pinchot, when I noticed what I thought at first was a man alongside the road, hunched over in pain. Now, this was from a distance, of course, and I was driving, but fearing someone was in trouble, I naturally pulled over. Now, here's something I want to go over. If I were driving down the road in the city, I wouldn't pull over seeing a guy, even one in pain on the side of the road. Now, I'd like to think that I would, but I probably wouldn't. But out here, there's nothing. Sometimes they're hundreds of miles. So if there's a person in trouble and you see them, you may be the only thing there to keep them alive. So you stop, even if it might be dangerous, because there's no one else. So I pulled in right next to the figure, and I couldn't have been maybe 6 feet from him. And when I opened the door and called out, he looked over, and I recognized him. It was the eyes. It wasn't just a Bigfoot, but it was the same one I'd seen before. I recognized that scent, that manly musk. It hit me, and I just knew it was him. It was the kind of thing you never forget, that scent. In fact, for years, I've been waking up in the middle of the night, just with that scent in my nose, thinking, Bigfoot is here. Well, he never was. It was just my wife, but, well, when he looked over, I recognized him. And I just didn't want it to happen again. Years ago, when I saw him and I just froze and didn't do anything. So I kind of scrambled at the time. I mean, I hadn't been out looking for Bigfoot, so I pulled out a chocolate bar. It was one of those Hershey's Big Hunk bars, and I figured, well, it has nuts, it has raisins, those are natural types of foods, and also chocolate, which isn't, but maybe Bigfoot would like to try it. So I slowly unwrapped it, and then just pushed it over onto the seat with the door still open, and waited. Now, it took a long time, but finally, he climbed into the minivan with me. Back then I had a Ford Aerostar, so he was all hunched over and kind of cramped and eating a chocolate bar very carefully while looking at me, well, from the side of his eye. He was rather cute, honestly. And he looked very shy. Then we managed a bit of, well, let's call it communication. It was mainly using hand gestures, some patting, a little light rubbing, and that led to later on to some grunting and well, anyway, he stayed with me for, it must have been nearly 2 hours. Right there on the side of the road, just communicating with me. Then he got out and left. I know that many people won't believe me, but
Nonsense! You're obviously a man of goodwill and clearly honest behavior. For one thing, no one would ever make up a story like that. I, for one, believe you wholeheartedly, sir. Now, what's this? Another email! Again, magically appearing in front of me on my screen. These screens are a marvel. They're so slim. Well, anyway, it's Dan again. No, this one comes from a woman named Emily in Washington State. Hey, that sounds very familiar. I think I know an Emily from Washington State. I can't remember from where, but I think I know one. She writes, Dearest Richard, please leave Bigfoot and come home. Your children and wife need you. That's all it says. No question or discussion point at all. I really, frankly, expect a little better from you people out there. You can see me here. I have no notes with questions for this man. You know that. I came prepared for Bigfoot's lover to be here on the phone with us, and instead, I've got a Bigfoot lover. I don't have questions for that. Everything I have is about animal sex and S&M. And does Bigfoot like it from the old back behind, or does he prefer the old fashions? I don't have questions, and you people have the entirety of the internet to come up with something, and what we get is, oh dear Richard, go home to your wife and kids. Oh, well, clearly, Mr. Smerl, some prankster out there thinks that this show is a joke. I must take responsibility for that. I am ill-prepared today, and I should have really checked with you first to make sure what we were going to be talking about. But there is never a shortage in the world of closed and narrow minds that think they're funny.
I've noticed that. However, I think that one might actually have been from my wife, though. She's quite a cut up, and that sounds just like her. Plus, her name's Emily, and she is from Washington State. Yeah, that probably was her.
Really? Well, that's unusual then. I'm surprised she made it through, given how many millions of people must be listening to this program by now. No doubt all of them wanting to communicate with us. Well, let me see here in my notes if I have another question that might fit. Well, I can try this one. Where do you and Bigfoot meet up now? You met once on the edge of the forest, and another time along a roadside, and then communicated with him in your minivan. But I imagine by now you go other places, hotels perhaps, or I don't know, perhaps you just meet right there in the woods. It seemed like Bigfoot might be comfortable there.
Look, I'm not seeing Bigfoot. Emily was just saying that. She's a joker, and well, she always teases me about things like that because of all my research, saying that Bigfoot and I are lovers and things like that. But I expected a little better from you, Dr. Livingston. You're Dr. Livingston. You're famous, and now you're making a travesty and mockery of all I've been working on for years. That really isn't very nice.
I am so sorry about that. I really just wasn't ready for a factual show about Bigfoot. Everything I came up with, as I just mentioned, was about your intimate relationship with the creature. I know this is a little awkward now, but think of it in my place, a being like Bigfoot. I mean, he's nearly human, and he's very, very rare. What are the odds of him running into a female Bigfoot off in the woods? Millions to one? And, well, I doubt they can even get blow-up dolls or escort services out there. Is it that unusual that when he met you and a connection formed, that he might take you as a lover? Wasn't that big of a stretch to think of that, was it? I don't want people thinking I'm weird. What do you say, Mr. Smerl? Was that big of a stretch?
Doctor.
Yes.
No, it's Dr. Smerl. You see, I have that doctorate in dentistry, hence the DDS after my name. A doctor of dental surgery. I've shown you more than enough professional courtesy in this show by referring to you by your title each and every time I used your name. And you keep calling me Mr. It's a little patronizing, don't you think? That and trying to make everyone think that Bigfoot and I are intimately connected.
Oh, forgive me, sir. I did not know that it would be a touchy subject for you. Well then, if you believe that dentists deserve such a lofty honor, I won't deny you, Dr. Smerl.
Fine. It's just I've had to deal with that one before. Mainly from my mother. If you aren't an MD, people act like your years of work just don't count. Doesn't matter what you do. So, hey, what are you a doctor of, by the way? I couldn't find any references to it online. They just all said you were a doctor.
Ah, that makes sense. I have the highest of all possible doctoral degrees. In fact, only one person has ever had it. Myself, of course. I'm a doctor of science.
Oh, okay, because, that's a thing.
Indeed it is. Now, another email message. These things are fascinating. It used to be that when I wanted to send a letter, I had to write on actual paper, which was made from trees back then. And then I had to put a stamp on it, in an envelope, address it properly, and give it to other people who would get it to you in about a week. Now people just go tippity-tap and they're there with their friends and relatives instantly. It's amazing. Now this one comes from, why, Jan, our production assistant. Hello, Jan. You can't see her at home, but she is waving at us and looks quite happy. She's really very cute. I was thinking of asking her out for a drink later, but so far I really haven't worked up the courage. These modern women are very different than back in my day. Well, now she's looking right at me, so what do you say, Jan? You know, you looked away and are hiding behind your hair. I can't really see. I know you're talking, but I can't read your lips, so, well, anyway, we'll talk about it later. Now, her question, which again is not really a question. All right, Dr. Smerl, your wife, Emily, got back in touch with us and claims that you are, truthfully, involved with Bigfoot and have been for a very long time. That you are, in fact, his lover. She wanted me to stress the point that this is not a joke and asks again for you to leave him and return to your family because they all miss you. Jan, you trickster, you! You are making this all up, aren't you? I know we need good ratings, but that's no reason to needle poor Dr. Smerl like this. It is really cute, though. I know that you, out in the audience, can't see her, but she's shaking her head no very emphatically and mouthing that she really got an email from Emily. Way to sell the story, Jan. Still, Dr. Smerl, we can't keep doing this to you. Why don't you just give us your own take and it'll be the final word on the matter. So tell us, are you playing hide the sausage? Or, I'm sure in his case, hide the long-tuned baloney with Bigfoot? Are you exchanging long and sensual back rubs at the local Turkish bathhouse with him? What do you say to those accusations then, Dr. Smerl? Yay or nay?
Fine. I don't care what people say anymore. I love Bigfoot and he loves me. If our love is wrong, then I don't want to be right. Judge away, world. Bigfoot and I don't care. We have each other. Our love is stronger than your hypocrisy and little minds. Nothing will ever tear us apart.
Oh, now that's a bombshell. Plus it means I can ask all my other questions right after I get done mocking and chastising you for making me look like a buffoon, saying that I trusted you and thought you sounded reasonable on my first ever radio program. If this show sinks in the ratings because of this, I know who to blame, don't I, Dr. Smerl? So, just to get even with you, tell me, who wears the pants in your relationship? I'm guessing Bigfoot does, even though he doesn't wear pants at all. After all, you seem a little bit prissy and girly to me, being too weak to actually fess up to your love for Bigfoot. Denying your actual situation like some kind of soft Susie for all the world to hear like you have been. Lying to my audience when that is not the kind of program I have, sir. I'm going to bet that Bigfoot is the boss. Am I right?
You know, I know that you're making fun of me, but yes, he weighs 600 pounds and it's all rippling muscle. Of course he's in charge. It's just natural that he would be.
Wait. Oh my. Another internet message is coming up on my screen. This is not good. I'm kind of stuck. I have to read this off, but I would rather not do this live on the air. So please do not think ill of me, Dr. Smerl, or you out there in the audience. It seems that Bigfoot was listening to the program and was unaware that you were going to be speaking about him today, Dr. Smerl. This email from him says that he cannot bear the shame of people knowing about your alternative relationship and that he's leaving you, Dr. Smerl. live on my program in front of the entire nation. To which I have to say, Bigfoot, really, I expect better of you. You're famous. You need to treat Dr. Smerl with respect and not make a fool of him in front of the entire nation. That's low, Bigfoot. That's very low, and I expect better of you. Much better.
What? No. I have to go. Biggie, don't do anything. I can explain all this. You can't leave me. I cannot go back to my wife and our kids. She is a harridan, and they are mouthy little bastards, and I hate them. I hate them all, and I will not go back to them. Don't leave me, Biggie. Don't. I'm coming, Biggie. I'm coming. Just hold on, and let me get the key. I'll be right there. Just wait. Strap these there.
Dr. Smerl? Dr. Smerl? Hello? I think we've lost him. Yes, Jan and Mortimer are both saying that he's gone. The line has been severed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I did promise you a most extraordinary adventure, and there you have it. A heartwarming tale of love and loss unfolding right before your ears. Thank you all for having listened, and please join us next week when we'll investigate the topic of real vampires. It will be a most amazing show, and I promise I will actually make sure that I am quite aware of what the topic is beforehand and not make a fool of myself for the entire episode. I'd like to thank Jan Meyer, who is our production assistant for this program, which I believe means she runs the crew. I don't really know what a production assistant does. Thank you, Mortimer, our sound technician, for doing a wonderful job. Thank you, Sally Hemmings, for all the wonderful Thomas Jefferson quotes. And of course, as always, the wonderful staff here at the Alexia Institute for Remarkable Individuals. I'd also love to thank P.S. Power, our writer. Good night, and remember, please buy from our sponsors. I'm nearly certain that they're mopped up, and they will break my legs if they don't make a decent return on their investments. My life is in your hands, people. Godspeed.